10 weirdest 1980s cartoon characters you forgot existed. The 1980s were a golden age of cartoons. Bright colors, loud theme songs, and toy companies running the show. But buried beneath the classics you remember, Transformers, He-Man, Thundercats, lurked some of the strangest characters ever to hit Saturday morning. Heroes that shouldn't exist, sidekicks that defied logic, and villains so bizarre you'd swear they came from a fever dream. What if I told you that your childhood memories hide some of the weirdest faces in animation history? Let's pull back the curtain and see who you forgot. Rubik the Amazing Cube. Imagine this. You're a kid in 1983, and your toy shelf is stacked with the must-haves of the decade. Then, along comes a Saturday morning cartoon based on one of the hottest fads ever, the Rubik's Cube. But here's the twist. Instead of a puzzle you twist with your hands, this cube had a face, little legs, and magical powers. Yes, Rubik the Amazing Cube was real. A cartoon about a floating toy puzzle that talked like a squeaky elf and granted wishes when solved. Created to cash in on the Rubik's craze, it followed a group of kids who stumbled across the magical cube after it escaped from an evil magician. That's right, somewhere in the 80s animation vault, a Rubik's Cube was being chased around like the crown jewels. And if that wasn't strange enough, Rubik wasn't just cute and helpful. He could bend reality. He could fly, shapeshift, and solve just about any problem the kids faced. School bully? Fixed? Lost treasure? No problem. Need to stop a villain? Rubik had your back. It was wish fulfillment wrapped in plastic squares. Here's the kicker. The show's theme song was performed by none other than Menudo, the legendary Latin boy band that launched Ricky Martin. So not only did you get magical cube antics, you also got bubblegum pop music every episode. But despite the hype, the show barely lasted. Why? Because unlike Transformers or G.I. Joe, you couldn't exactly build an epic toy line around a single cube with a face. Kids loved the fad, but even the most devoted fans couldn't keep the magic alive. Still, Rubik remains one of the most bizarre relics of 1980s animation. A puzzle-turned personality, a cube that could talk, and a perfect example of just how wild Saturday mornings used to be. Turbotine. Now buckle up because this next entry takes weird to a whole new lane. Picture a teenager, normal kid, high school, friends, crushes. But whenever his body temperature shifts, say he gets too hot or too cold, he transforms into a sports car. That's right, Turbotine, the 1984 cartoon that tried to mix superhero drama with automotive fantasy. Our hero, Brett Matthews, crashes into a secret government lab, gets zapped by experimental technology, and suddenly finds himself living with the most impractical superpower ever imagined, turning into a red Pontiac Firebird whenever his body temperature changes. Now, on paper, maybe it sounded cool. Kids loved cars, kids loved superheroes, why not smash them together? But in practice, Turbotine was surreal. One moment Brett is walking through the mall, the next he's sprouting tires where his feet should be, with headlights popping out of his chest. Friends had to literally drive him when the adventure kicked in. That's not a sidekick job anyone asked for. And let's talk villains. Turbotine didn't face world-shattering threats. He tangled with garden-variety crooks, random mad scientists, and even an evil racing syndicate. Hardly the kind of danger that justified turning your main character into a rolling set of wheels. But here's the part that sticks with fans. The transformation scenes. Animators leaned hard into body horror. Brett's face stretching into a grill, his arms bending into fenders. It was a Saturday morning nightmare disguised as an action show. Kids couldn't look away. Did you know Turbotine even crossed over into Marvel Comics? For a hot second, Brett's bizarre gift lived on in print, cementing his place as one of the strangest heroes to come out of the 80s. The show only lasted 13 episodes, but it carved out a cult following. Because really, how many other cartoons dared to make their protagonist a boy-car hybrid? Turbotine wasn't just weird, he was unforgettable. Mr. Nozone, Toxic Crusaders, 1989. If the 1980s had one secret weapon, it was the art of turning anything into a cartoon. And I mean anything. Case in point, Mr. Nozone from Toxic Crusaders. Imagine a world of mutant superheroes, each stranger than the last. Then picture a man with a giant glowing red nose who sneezes toxic blasts at his enemies. That's right, Mr. Nozone was a walking allergy joke brought to life. His origin? He flew a plane through a cloud of toxic gas and came out with the kind of mutation only the 80s could dream up. His body was human, but his nose was a super-powered cannon of sneezes. Kids didn't know whether to laugh, cringe, or grab a tissue. But here's the kicker. Toxic Crusaders was designed as a kid-friendly spin-off of an R-rated cult movie series. That's like taking a gritty midnight movie and asking, how do we make this safe for Saturday morning? The answer? Mutants, with cartoon slapstick, goofy jokes, and bright toy-friendly designs. Mr. Nozone quickly became the strangest standout. While the main hero, Toxie, had strength and heart, Nozone had, well, his nose. Episodes often found bizarre ways to use his sneezing power to save the day. Villains, blown away, obstacles, sneezed apart, need comic relief, cue the giant honk. Did you know the toy line even gave him a little tissue accessory? That's right. A superhero whose action figure came prepared for the sniffles. Only in the 80s could that idea make it past a pitch meeting. Mr. Nozone may not have lasted long, but he remains proof that the 1980s cartoon scene was fearless, willing to turn even a sneeze into a superpower. Booey Bubblehead, Galaxy High, 1986. Next stop, outer space. Imagine a high school, but instead of lockers and pep rallies, you've got aliens, robots, and creatures so bizarre they looked like doodles come to life. That was Galaxy High, a short-lived 1986 cartoon that asked, what if Earth teens had to survive in a cosmic high school full of the weirdest classmates ever? Enter Booey Bubblehead, the alien with a literal see-through head filled with water and floating objects. Yes, Bowie's skull was basically a fish tank, complete with a goldfish swimming around inside. Half-class clown, half-walking aquarium, Booey was the comic relief of the series. On the surface, he was the lovable goofball, always late, always silly, and usually the first to get into trouble. But that see-through head gave animators endless gags. One moment he'd have pencils floating in there, the next a sandwich, the next, why not, an anchor. His head was less a brain and more a storage locker for visual jokes. Galaxy High itself was the brainchild of Chris Columbus, the same writer who later brought us the Goonies and Gremlins. And you can see that DNA, a mix of teen drama, colorful characters, and a sense of chaos that felt ahead of its time. But it was Booey Bubblehead who stole scenes with his off-the-wall design. Did you know? The show only lasted 13 episodes, but it developed a cult following years later when fans rediscovered how strange, stylish, and daring it was. And Booey? He remains the kind of character you can't unsee, equal parts bizarre, creative, and unforgettable. The Street Frogs, 1987. The 1980s loved trends. Breakdancing, rap, neon fashion. It all had to find its way into Saturday morning television. Enter the Street Frogs, a cartoon segment tucked inside the anthology series, The Comic Strip. And yes, it was exactly what it sounds like. Frogs in tracksuits rapping their way through the big city. Picture it. A hip-hop crew made up of amphibians, complete with boomboxes, slang, and dance-offs. On paper, it was meant to be cool. Kids loved music, kids loved animals, so why not merge the two? But on screen, it felt like watching adults try very, very hard to understand youth culture. The frogs had attitude, sure, but their rhymes landed more like nursery rhymes than street beats. The characters were drawn with exaggerated style, oversized sneakers, colorful jackets, shades at night. And yet, for all their attempts at edge, they came off as charmingly awkward. One frog would breakdance, another would rhyme about friendship, another would strut like he was headlining Madison Square Garden. Here's a twist. These weren't throwaway characters. The show came from the same studio that gave us Thundercats and Silverhawks. Yes, the same people who made Fierce Warriors and Cosmic Heroes also gave us amphibians who rapped about doing your homework. Did you know? The Street Frogs even got their own mini-comic in kids' magazines, pushing them as a franchise hopeful. It never took off. But looking back, their brightly colored attempts to bottle hip-hop for Saturday morning TV are pure time capsule gold. The Street Frogs weren't just weird, they were proof of how desperately the 80s wanted cartoons to stay cool. The Baby Ghosts, the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, 1985. Now, let's step into the haunted hallways of Hanna-Barbera. You know Scooby-Doo, one of the most famous cartoon dogs in Hollywood history. But in 1985, the franchise took a left turn with the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. Instead of standard mysteries, Scooby, Shaggy, and new friends hunted down real supernatural beings. And along the way, they picked up some unusual tag-alongs. Meet the Baby Ghosts, little floating toddler spirits designed as comic relief. With big eyes, tiny voices, and mischief in their bones, they were supposed to lighten the spook factor. Instead, they became some of the strangest additions ever to the Scooby universe. Think about it. Scooby and Shaggy are already comedy gold. Did they really need ghostly babies giggling and floating around? These spirits caused chaos, pulled pranks, and occasionally helped out, but mostly they left audiences scratching their heads. Cute? Maybe. Necessary? Not at all. Adding to the oddity, the series also introduced Vincent Van Ghoul, voiced by horror legend Vincent Price. So you had a gothic, moody atmosphere, dark supernatural plots, and then these goofy baby ghosts bouncing around in the background. The tonal clash was unforgettable. Did you know? The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo never actually wrapped up its central storyline. Only 12 ghosts were captured during the original run. Years later, a direct-to-video film finally tied up the loose ends. But the baby ghosts? They didn't make a comeback. And maybe that's for the best. Still, they remain one of the oddest examples of how even a legendary franchise could wander into the weird. Cheetah Man, Chuck Norris, Karate Commandos, 1986. In the mid-80s, Hollywood decided Chuck Norris needed his own cartoon, and thus Chuck Norris. Karate Commandos was born, a short-lived series where America's favorite martial arts star led a team against bizarre villains. None, however, were stranger than Cheetah Man. Yes, a villain in leopard print spandex, claws on his hands, and a snarling cat mask that made him look like a cross between a pro wrestler and a comic book reject. He leapt, he clawed, he hissed, and he never stood a chance against Chuck. What makes him unforgettable? He wasn't just an animal-themed bad guy. He was played completely straight, as if a cheetah-themed criminal mastermind was perfectly normal. It was peak 1980s. Take a household name, surround them with toy-friendly weirdos, and hope kids beg for the action figures. But here's the secret. Karate Commandos only lasted 5 episodes. That's right. Cheetah Man's entire TV career was shorter than most commercials. Still, his absurdity cements him as one of the strangest villains to stalk Saturday mornings. QT, the Get Along Gang, 1984. The Get Along Gang. A group of friendly, anthropomorphic animals traveling around in a clubhouse caboose, teaching kids about friendship. Sweet, wholesome, heartwarming. But then, there was QT McWhiskers, the fuzzy pink creature who wasn't really a cat, wasn't really a dog, and spoke in squeaks only the characters seemed to understand. Think about that. Every other member of the gang had clear dialogue. Moose, Montgomery, Wilma Lamb, Bingo Beaver, they all spoke like normal cartoon critters. But QT? He squeaked. Constantly. His friends translated, as if squeaky gibberish was just part of their daily routine. For kids, QT was supposed to be adorable, a mascot within a mascot show. But for adults looking back, he's surreal, like a stuffed animal brought to life without a clear identity. Did you know? The Get Along Gang started as greeting card art. That's right, Hallmark helped shape QT McWhiskers into existence. Proof that the 1980s could turn anything, even doodles meant for a birthday card, into full-blown cartoons. Mighty Orbots, 1984. Now we blast into robot territory. The early 80s were obsessed with giant robots. Transformers, Voltron, GoBots. But then came Mighty Orbots, a show with style, flair, and robots unlike any other. Instead of one hero, the Orbots were a team of quirky machines with wildly different personalities. Bort, the shy shapeshifter, Bo and Boo, twin sisters with opposite temperaments, Crunch, who ran on food, and Ono, a tiny assistant who cried when overwhelmed. Together, they combined into the Mighty Orbots robot. On paper, it was awesome. In reality, it was downright strange. 1 minute, you had comedy hijinks, Crunch eating entire planets worth of junk food. The next, you had dazzling anime-style battles with serious villains. The tone swung wildly, leaving kids confused but fascinated. Did you know? Mighty Orbots was animated in Japan with incredible quality, making it look years ahead of its time. But a lawsuit from the creators of Transformers cut its life short after just 1 season. Today, it's remembered less for its epic robot battles and more for its oddball robot cast. Equal parts comedy troupe and superhero squad. Freddy Cat, now for a truly forgotten gem. Freddy Cat originally aired in the 1970s but lived on through syndicated reruns in the early 80s, becoming a cult favorite among kids who stumbled upon it. The premise? Freddy, a jittery orange cat, was haunted, literally, by the ghosts of his 8 past lives. Each ghost appeared whenever Freddy mentioned their number. Say 1, and Ghost 1 showed up. Say 8, and Ghost 8 appeared. Every life had a different personality, from a swashbuckling pirate to a bumbling caveman. For children, this was equal parts hilarious and unsettling. Imagine trying to count your toys, only to summon a ghostly ancestor who ruins your day. Freddy couldn't escape his past, literally, and that strange curse gave the cartoon its spooky, surreal charm. Did you know? The show was produced by Filmation, the same studio behind He-Man. But unlike Eternia's muscle-bound hero, Freddy was the ultimate underdog, unlucky, haunted, and forever running from his own history. And there you have it, the hidden hall of fame for the weirdest cartoon characters of the 1980s. From Rubik's magical cube antics to Turbo Teen's body-bending car tricks, these creations remind us that Saturday mornings were never just simple fun. They were wild experiments in imagination. Which one burned itself deepest into your memory? Drop your pick in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more Hollywood secrets. Until next time, remember, the past is never ordinary. It's unforgettable.